Eddie, let's wait about another minute. I want to keep them in the. I want to see those numbers keep climbing before we bring them in. So I know we're at 52 now. I know it's continuing to rise. Let's maybe wait like maybe it's like 7:31. If that makes sense.
Sounds good.
Yep.
About 30 seconds out.
And if everybody could stay on mute also once we get started until we get ready to start the panel, that'd be great too, just to avoid any other noise.
And Gabe, that's 31. Do you want to open it up? Wait a little bit more?
Yeah, half a minute more. Half a minute more. Yeah, let's do that. And Sonny, you'll be able to connect right to the stream right the minute that we go, right? Okay, gotcha. Yep. Let's go, Teddy.
All right, here we go, folks.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody, and hope everybody is doing well. My name is Brother Gabe from Mobilization for Mumia here in Philadelphia Live, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And we're proud to celebrate and honor today our dear beloved brother Mumia Abu-Jamal today on his 71st birthday. If you didn't know, every year on April 24th, we honor the legacy of one of the greatest human beings to walk the earth, particularly Philadelphia's native son, somebody who is a political prisoner, somebody who is a father, somebody who was a journalist, Black Panther member, right? Somebody who was organizing as a teenager, somebody who is the author of over a dozen books, somebody who's had films made about him and documentaries and stories, somebody's promoted and supported by the likes of individuals like Giancarlo Esposito and Alice Walker and Maya Angelou, Dr. Angela Davis, Danny Glover, and so many others. And he's somebody who has always, through the years and more importantly, through the decades, understood that his story was one of many radical and revolutionary stories in the continuum towards liberation and justice for all. And so we thank Mumia Abu-Jamal on today's uh, birthday. And more importantly, we say, what's the call? Free them all. We know that soon come, we'll be able to see Mumia Abu-Jamal walk our streets, talk with our neighbors, and break bread with other revolutionaries towards the ongoing struggle towards liberation. In this unique time where we see fascism taking place all across the world, we see global crises happening day in and day out. We see some folks being discouraged and jaded by the opportunities to build and to create perpetual change. But Mumia reminds us that we must always understand our own power, our own commitment, and our own vast courage that is historical to all the triumphs and wins that we've had as a movement through the years. So, in this moment, we must hold on to our courage, we must hold on to our boldness, and we must hold on to the idea of an inevitable victory. And that's in the spirit of our dear beloved brother Mumia Abu Jamal. And so we thank you all for joining us this evening. Please be sure to share the link as you're watching today, whether you're watching tonight via YouTube or via Facebook. We thank you all for being with us tonight because we know that this is a collective, unified conversation and discussion. Whether you're tapping in here in Philadelphia or from New York, from the West Coast, Detroit, DMV area, and all parts in the middle, and even across the waters in Mexico and in Germany and in France. We thank you all for tapping in with us because your energy and your support, frankly, if we're being honest, has kept this man alive. And so thank you all for that. And as Mumia always reminds us, continue to not only support Mumia Abu Jamal, but support all the political prisoners and those in fact imprisoned behind the walls in these states' cages. We understand that he's just one of many, but he's one that we need to release and see freedom soon, and that there are so many others that we also need to support. Just like our brother who just came home just a couple months ago, Leonard Peltier, that great man who we all supported for so many decades, who saw his release just 2 short months ago. We understand the power that it meant for all of us to see him walk home. And so hold on to those images of seeing Leonard Peltier leave in 2025. Hold on to those ideas on what it means to embark on a 50-year struggle to freedom. And what does it mean to still stay convicted beyond one day, beyond 1 week, beyond 1 month, beyond 1 year of struggle? And being able to still know within one's heart and one's spirit and soul that liberation can still happen, and more importantly, will still happen by any means and at all costs. So once again, we welcome you all tonight for joining us. We're excited about tonight's conversation and about an opportunity to really look at this question of twisted laws, Mumia, universities, and Palestine. And we're going to delve into these questions tonight, and we're going to hopefully have a rich discussion. And we encourage you all to jump into the chat and make sure that you can provide not only your comments, but certainly your questions, because we do want to get to those questions at some point in time to be able to engage our community and engage folks in a real, honest, and sincere, transparent way. So with that being said, what we want to do is first, in the spirit of tonight's conversation, we want to get to some places that you can support. And we're going to be showing these screens tonight in the beginning of this conversation, as well as at the end. And really, the goal of it is to make sure that whether you tapping in now or tapping in later on, we want to make sure that you all know that there are places to go that you can support. That's always one of the questions that we get. We want to, support Mumia Abu-Jamal. We want to support political prisoners. We want to donate. We want to figure out ways to be in conversation. And so we want to make sure that we can be not only in dialogue with you all, but to also showcase that we're here for you all. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we do have links that will be in the chat. And so people will be putting those in the chat right now as you speak. Those are opportunities for you to donate, but more importantly, to just even learn more about the rich history, about the stories, about the legacy. These will be links not only from Mobilization for Mumia, but they're also going to be, I'm sure many of you all have, I'm sure, seen through the years and heard through the years, the commentaries, the rich commentaries by our dear friends over at Prison Radio. And so that's going to be great work that you can all tap in with. But also, we want you to be able to write him. I tell people all the time that people say, well, what can we do to support Mumia Abu-Jamal? I say, well, how many coffees did you buy today? I can guarantee you that for the same cost of that coffee, you could have sent 5 letters to a political prisoner across the country or across the world. And so please, if you feel compelled, please feel free to put a snapshot of this, or what you see on your screen right now. Smart Communications, Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, Mumia Abu-Jamal, AM 8335, SCI Mahanoy, P.O. Box 33028, St. Petersburg, Florida 33733. Quick note, all the Mumia is incarcerated in Pennsylvania. The mail does go through a scan in Florida. The scanned image goes to the prison, and the prison permit prints out the letter to go to Mumia. He only gets copies. So that's just good for you all to know. So you can always tap into this QR code on the screen for the letter writing guide. Please take a snapshot of that if you will. Take a photo with your phone. Do whatever makes sense for you. Again, we're going to put this back up on the screen later on in tonight's conversation. In addition, for our folks and comrades who are in New York City, and for those who want to travel to New York City, there will be a Global Justice and Mumia Abu-Jamal program.
Gabe, I am on the phone. Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
We've been on the phone for a while. Hold on.
Okay. We got you. We are about to go
Okay.
live, family, with our brother Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Hey, hey,
What's going on, Mu? How you feel?
good, good. I am well, all things considered.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. We are here now we got tons of folks tapping in, hundreds of folks tapping in online. And as well, we have a group full of panelists tonight talking about this concept of twisted laws, Mumia, universities, and Palestine. And most importantly, we say happy birthday to you, brother.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
comrade.
Thank you,
Happy
brother.
birthday.
Thank you. Thank
Happy
you.
birthday, comrade.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I want to thank all of you. I think that our movement represents one of the most remarkable freedom movements in modern American history. We have been through thick and thin, through fire and smoke and water, through state terror, through all kinds of things. But still, we're here. And that is a remarkable testament to the spirit of the people. So I want to thank everyone within the reach of my voice, of my words through other medium, and just a few words about the moment that we're in. When I look at what's happening in the world today, I think about a wave of repression against courts, students, many very brave and courageous students who stood against the slaughter in Palestine. Many brave students and activists who are now being cast into dragnets and being chased by the state, giving their political opinion for writing it or for seeking it or for demonstrating. Interesting, in the land that claims to follow the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I'm not tripping on the Constitution. And
Okay, that might have been a line that got crossed. We're gonna try to see if we can regain the sound there. We do recognize that Mumia was caught right in the middle of his commentary, of his remarks. So we will try to see if we can get the sound back on. Just let us know, text up folks behind the scenes, if you all can just let us know. We'll review the chat and see if there's anything there that we can make sure. And so folks watching live, again, this is live, so we love you all for still sticking with us. We know that, oftentimes those calls behind the walls can be a bit tricky, right? And so we're gonna try to see if we can get that call back, if possible. But at the very least, we're able to wish him a happy birthday, and he was able to hear you all, which is beautiful. All right. I'm gonna click my phone, but I'll finish up this part and then we'll get started with the questions. I was speaking about New York City. Again, Saturday, April 26th from 1 to 3 p.m. They'll be at the south end of Union Square Park in New York, 10003. And so it should be a great opportunity for folks to tap in. 14th Street between Broadway and University Place, across from the Whole Foods, Union Square. This is the Free Mumia Abu-Jamal Coalition, NYC. It'll be a demo focusing on Mumia's unjust conviction, incarceration, the liberation struggles of Palestine, as well as the brother Robert Brooks, who was the New York prisoner beaten to death by prison guards. And so please come out to that 1 to 3 p.m. again, Saturday. Folks in New York or people that want to go to New York, again, please take a screenshot or follow through. And you can get more information also at freemumia.com. Again, that's freemumia.com. Lastly, again, donate. You can donate if you go to visit mobilizationformumia.com/donate. You can donate there. And you can also, like we said earlier, listen and follow Mumia's commentaries at prisonradio.org, as well as donate to that cause and movement. So with that being said, family, what we want to do is we want to get started. And again, we have a robust panel. I would just add that when people do check in, if you could just, again, once again, just remind people of your pronouns, and then we'll just get started. But I want to get started, family, starting with a question for the group here that we have. We've got a fantastic lineup of folks. If you could just provide your name.
Gabe,
Yes, he's
Gabe,
back. He's
we're
back. Wonderful.
Only for a moment. Thank you.
We got you, brother. We got you. We're gonna pause. Go ahead, brother.
I just wanted to say that we're met by really incredible waves of repression. And I think the only thing that can really meet that kind of force is a counterforce. That means waves of resistance. And it has to come from every sector that can be mobilized to resist this repression. And we talk about a constitution. Remember, any people who can ignore the Constitution for 100 years, I'm talking about after the writing of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, ignore it when it comes to African people, is capable of anything. Is capable of anything. That's a lesson from history. So learn our lessons from history, learn the lessons of where there is repression, there must be resistance, and struggle. Because struggle is the only thing that brings about progress, to quote W.E.B. Du Bois. I love you all. We only got a few seconds left. Technical difficulties. What can I tell you?
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
We love you,
brother.
comrade Mumia. Free Mumia.
Love
All
you
power to the
all.
people.
All
Great
power
move.
to the people, all the time, every day, in every way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
you
brother.
for being there.
Thank you, Moo. Thank
The
you,
caller
gentlemen.
has hung up.
So once again, this is one of those things, like I share all the time, oftentimes just to hear Mumia's voice, somebody who can be still courageous and focus on our justice and liberation, even behind the walls as he continues to politicize those prisoners on the inside at Mahanoy. Just powerful work, and it's always a treat. We should feel blessed to have these opportunities, right? To learn and to listen, to be educated on real life. I say all the time, he is more free than many of us outside the walls, right? So with that being said, family, I want to start off. We'll start with Maya and Muhammad. Again, if you can, as we go down the list, just pretty much give your name, pronouns, how you're stepping into the space, from what affiliation, and then pretty much the question really is, what has Mumia's life and legacy meant for you and your organizing work? And so we'll start with you, Maya, and then we'll sort of hop around.
Hi everyone, I'm Maya. Any pronouns. I am currently in law school at Temple, and I'm a part of Temple Law Students for Justice in Palestine. And Mumia is someone who keeps me grounded in this movement and reminds me of what I aim to do with my law degree. I know I want to work within some form of public interest, whether it be immigration or public defense, but I specifically want to do everything that I do through an abolitionist lens. And Mumia solidifies this purpose. So, as we all say, what's the call? Free them all, and free them all from these systems that were created by colonizing fascist bodies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you, comrades. My name is Mohammed Khatib. I am a Palestinian refugee from Ain al-Hilwi camp in the south of Lebanon. I come originally from the north of Palestine, which is so-called Israel today. I live in Belgium. I am the European coordinator for Samidun Solidarity Network with the Palestinian political prisoners. What Comrade Mumia means to me, Comrade Mumia organized me. As a child in Al Hilwi camp, I joined the Palestinian left because I was inspired by the internationalist connections of this Palestinian part of the society. Comrade Mumia Abu-Jamal, he's not just a Black Panther prisoner in the United States of America. He is an internationalist leader who is not only influencing new generations in the United States, or so-called United States, but in the world, in Africa. Africa, in Europe, in Lebanon, in Palestine, along with George Ibrahim Abdullah, along with Ahmed Saadat, along with tens of thousands of political prisoners in the Philippines, in Palestine, in Yemen, in all over this earth. Comrade Mumia is a symbol and icon for our revolutionary movement and for this path from generation to generation until victory and struggle. And I remember once in one of his interviews with Democracy Now, he was asked about his opinion about the mass movement being created internationally for his liberation. So he said that this is the people who loves and so on. So I want just to use this opportunity to say we are the people who love you, and we will never let you go until victory. We come from the bottom for sure, and not from the top. And we know you in the revolution and in the struggle as a leader of the vanguard of the cadres of this movement internationally. And we will not let you go. We will hold on in your struggle, not only by being part of your campaign, but also by being involved and part of the struggle in all of its sector, as students, as workers, as a freedom fighters, as a unionists, from all part of this movement. We are committed to the liberation of Mumia, Abu-Jamal, and all political prisoners, but our main commitment to them is to be committed to our freedom and to our community liberation and to defeat fascism and imperialism and to hold on the hope of the struggle and our community and our people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And all power to the people of Palestine for sure. No question about that. Let's bring up Nick and then Zach, please. Nick, please, first.
Definitely. I shade everything. Hi y'all, I'm Nicholas, he, they pronouns, and I'm with the Columbia Student Union. And I think, I mean, Mumia's life and story is invaluable to me. I think I was just actually reading CLR James's speech on Walter Rodney and the question of power. And he says in it that insurrection must rely upon a revolutionary upsurge of the people. And he sort of urges organizers to sort of always stay ready and always be prepared for that uprising. And I think that Mumia is someone to me that just represents that revolutionary urgency. He is always ready. He's always prepared. He is always supporting whatever's going on in the moment. I'm thinking back to even last year during the encampments, he was prepared and just had knowledge to share. And so I think I aspire to have that level of preparedness and urgency. And I think that it is invaluable to the movement.
Appreciate you, Nick. Let's go to Zach.
Sounds good. Peace, everybody. My name is Zach. I am currently Temple's Black Student Union president. I'm also a graduating student, so I'm going to be the former. Mumia's life, for me particularly, and his legacy as an activist has profound sort of impacts on my life, for sure. One of the ways I see it is particularly within the Black student movement, particularly here at Temple. Our BSU started deep within the Black student movement around the 70s, late 60s, where students were really trying to figure out ways to edge out within the university system, not only ways to, have their own places to sort of speak and learn about Black history, and learn about, liberatory practices, but also bring it to the streets. And in a lot of ways, students have sort of continue on that mantle, not just at Temple, but also we see it particularly within HBCUs as well, where we're starting to see a lot of sort of uptick in student activism, not only historically, but also now. And so in a lot of ways, Mumia motivates me to sort of continue struggling, understanding that, even though my time as a student is coming to a close, that doesn't mean that, I can't motivate other students to want to actually become more politicized and understand the conditions around them. And also postgraduately, try to etch out whatever sort of struggle I can, in whatever path life takes me afterwards. So that's definitely one of the more profound influences he's had on my life, that the struggle continues no matter where you are, particularly. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zach. Let's bring on Bina, and then Richie will close us out on this question.
All power to the people, comrades. My name is Mina, she, her. I am a nursing student in my final year of education, specializing in emergency medicine. I am also, what's it called? And I mean, what Mumia means to me is back in high school when I was first becoming radicalized, two things happened. One, I had a teacher give me Blood in My Eye by George Jackson when I was 17 years old. And that same year, reading that book cover to cover inspired me to reach out to local groups back in Newark, New Jersey, around where I originally grew up. And through that, I met Kevin Rashid Johnson, who is a current political prisoner, who Mumia actually wrote the foreword for one of his books called I think it was Defying in the Tomb. And so while I was being radicalized and reading the works of Black political prisoners, George Jackson, Sophia Bukhari, Assata Shakur, and of course Mumia, like the line that flowed through all of these figures was that these people had sacrificed everything for liberation. They were going on some of the, like 40, 50, however many years, if they survived that long, if they weren't killed beforehand. And so and you saw them remain steadfast through that entire process, and like seeing that like people's principles and people's dedication to a liberation movement could carry them through unimaginable torture. And I remember reading George Jackson. I remember he introduced me to Ho Chi Minh, and Ho Chi Minh said, when the prison doors open, the real dragons will fly out. And I think about our dragons, all of our dragons in Palestine, in the Philippines, as Muhammad mentioned, and of course Mumia. These are the people whose bravery and sacrifice and militancy give fuel to our movements outside. And they also challenge us, because when we refuse to rise to the level that they did and rise to the level that is necessary, because anything less than us freeing them, than us getting them the fuck out of prison is not enough. Because like we owe it to our prisoners to liberate our prisoners, every last one of them. And so they challenge us to do more. And so Mumia's life to me is, as I said before, a North Star in all of our organizing. At least it should be. The Palestinians taught me that prisoners are our compass, prisoners and martyrs. And I'll never forget that lesson, one of the many lessons I've learned from my Palestinian comrades. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bina. And Rishi, please close us out, please.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Rishi. My pronouns are he, him. I'm with Temple SJP. I was first introduced to Mumia and to Mumia's work through Palestine organizing. The first time I heard Mumia speak was at the Penn encampment last year. And this was during a time where we were under a lot of pressure, external pressure from administration, from the PPD, from the state and overall more generally. And it was like the student movement, at least in our context at the time, was under immense stress and honestly almost on the brink of fracturing internally. And Gabe came to our encampment. None of us knew what was going to happen except like for a few people, and got on the phone with Mumia, and we heard him speak. And the first thing I remember was realizing how grounding this moment was, because here we were in on the University of Pennsylvania's campus, a school with more money than like the entire state of Armenia, that, you know, a school that's like actively like colonizing both like West Philadelphia and funding the colonization and the ethnic cleansing going on in Palestine and all over the world. And we were sitting here on the lawn, on the verge of fracturing, hearing someone who, despite being incarcerated for decades, continued their resistance work within prison, within incarceration. And to me, at the moment, like when I heard him speak about that, speak to his experiences, and honestly ground us, like it changed my life. Like it changed the entire trajectory of how I understood my role. You know, like he Mumia Abu-Jamal sacrifices everything that he can because he has nothing left to sacrifice. He is incarcerated. And he continues to advocate for prisoner health care under incarceration. He continues to release books under incarceration, continues to write while in solitary confinement. And our role as, you know, students as like a petite bourgeois class of students, should be to sacrifice what we can in our position. If like if our political prisoners continue to be our North Star, continue to be the vanguard of our movement, then what excuse do we have outside in relative freedom? So yeah, Mumia Abu-Jamal has been instrumental to the way I understand the world around me and my own role. Yeah, so I'm so honored to be here, and thank you, Gabe, for letting me close us out.
Nah, thank you, Rishi. And I think that, you all have pretty much expounded, I think, on a lot on, what it's going to take for us to organize, mobilize on multiple levels, right, when it comes to this movement and to be able to kind of build further. This is a question that I actually have for Nicholas and for Bina. And if anybody wants to chime in, feel free, but I want to start with Nicholas and Bina first on this question. And so many of you all have also just saw and read, perhaps saw social media about the students who were at the University of Michigan who I believe just yesterday had their homes raided by the feds, right? These were students who were involved in Palestinian protests. I believe they were detained but released. But still, these tactics of having your home sort of raided in that regard. Many saw the video on Instagram. And so, knowing what we've seen in the context over the past 2 years, I'm interested in hearing, first of all, from you both, your experiences sort of combating both this question of the campus leadership and the state, and what strategies have you employed to sort of push back against, what the campus may try to do to sort of, either detain folks, get people arrested, or just overall being obviously not supporting the causes that you all have led. Let's start with you, Nicholas.
Yeah, definitely. First, I think I'd be remiss without saying free Mahmoud Khalil, free Mohsen, free all the students that are being targeted at Columbia and all the other campuses. Um, I think, in terms of sort of how campus leadership, especially here, is sort of collaborating with the state. I mean, we're seeing this a lot more frequently in terms of having comrades have their dorms kicked in, having people waiting outside of their classrooms, waiting to interrogate them, having people show up at jobs. This is nothing new, obviously, but um, yeah, I think for us, it's been really important to. I think the title of this panel is fitting in that it's important to recognize how twisted the laws can be, and recognizing that fascism doesn't reward compliance; it takes advantage of it by twisting the laws and policies that we sort of invest all of our value and our belief system in. And I think at Columbia's campus in particular, it's been really important in our work because it seems like there's new infrastructure being built on the fly to sort of regulate and surveil students. Um, and it's just been important to keep track of the developments, but also to sort of contextualize them. I think, for example, we just had a couple weeks ago, they hired 36 new officers that were hired by Columbia, but appointed by Columbia, but and funded, but also appointed by NYPD. And there was a lot of confusion around, what are these new officers going to do? Are they going to be the same as our sort of regular public safety officers? And sort of um, interrogating that relationship between Columbia and NYPD and making people know that, making sure people know that they have arrest power, that they have access to private buildings, which is not something that NYPD had before. And so we're seeing sort of these silent shifts that people aren't getting a whole lot of context around that's making it easier to target and surveil students. So I think it's been important to sort of keep folks informed, keep track of all of the developments that Columbia is trying to make sure that we don't see. But also, I think in terms of organizing, in terms of the actions that we're doing, I think one of the biggest strategies has been just protecting our most vulnerable. I think that that's something that we all learned, especially after last year, that, it doesn't mean that international students have to be on the front lines in the same way. If you're a student who's more vulnerable, if you're a student who has other sort of risks that you have to consider, there are people with more privilege and more access who can step forward. And so I think it's just been important to protect those in our organizing community that want to contribute and are still at the center and the core of this, but also have more to risk. And I think that it's important that we assess risk, but also power and privilege when we're doing the work.
Appreciate you. How about you, Bina? And you've been, I'm sure, at many of these actions and protests and demos. What have you seen? What have you been experiencing, particularly the ways to combat what the state's doing on these college campuses?
So, yeah, I'm going to answer the question in a few parts. I think starting from the baseline understanding that the university is the state. There is no separation between the university and the state. And so this is actually one of my, in hindsight, and I think criticism and self-criticism are so vital in our movement because we must apply those principles. And, I'm a communist. Shout out to Mao Zedong, who gave us the principles of criticism and self-criticism. One of the things that I've been reflecting on is this idea of disclosing and divestment being a central demand of the student movement last spring. When we ask university to divest from imperialism, the only way to fill that demand is destroying the university. And we should embrace that because that's something we have to do if we're going to get real about liberation. And I think the next sort of step on that to talk about repression, because I think that I think students have to understand that our position as students cannot be something that we hold on to with any level of prestige, because our position as students is, at one point we are exploited and oppressed by these schools, but on the other hand, we are literally being trained to be foot soldiers of America's ruling class. That's what being a student at an elite institution means, is you are being trained to be a foot soldier for capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism. So in terms of repression, I want to quote from Blood in My Eye. And I wrote this down earlier, so please excuse my fumbling around with my camera. But we must accept the eventuality of bringing the USA to its knees, accept the closing off of critical sections of the city with barbed wire, armored pig carriers crisscrossing the streets, soldiers everywhere, Tommy guns pointed at stomach level, smoke curling black against the daylight sky, the smell of cordite, house-to-house searches, doors being kicked in, the commonness of death, and then we must learn the ways of resistance. When we talk about what is necessary to keep ourselves safe, rarely in that conversation does it end at the importance of building a movement with teeth. Building a movement with teeth that can bite back at these universities. And I think it's important that we understand that revolution is illegal. That there is nothing that we can do that will appeal to legality or that will appeal to a framework that will keep us safe, any of us. And the only safety we potentially can have is if we go on the offensive. And if we start making it dangerous to do what they're doing to us and to do what they're doing to our comrades around the world and right here. And so, yeah, that is, I'm just going to end there before I start ranting too much.
We appreciate that energy and we appreciate your commentary on this question. And this idea of, having to go on the offensive is certainly something that we've learned, and the freedom for Mumia Abu-Jamal, having to really launch a movement that's going to take care of our brother, whether it's his health, whether it's his legal issues, certainly where he's situated, imprisonment. We have to not only be on the defensive, but certainly on the offensive for sure. I want to bring Muhammad in. Because what's been raised has been around the encampments, and we understand that Palestine continues to be at the global moral center for political movement building. After 560 plus days of this terror on the Palestinian people, but the entire diaspora, we could argue, it's been important for us, Muhammad, to kind of learn from you all on what's been happening on the ground in Palestine. And so talk to us about the political prisoners that we still need to look at, right? That may not be flooding our social media pages, but certainly have stories that need to be told and who have stories and experiences that we must support with our work and commitment. So please, Brother Muhammad, the floor is yours.
Thank you. To be honest, if you allow me to start by saying that as much as I am proud to be here, hearing from Comrade Mumia personally and be part of this event, I am also very proud to be with all students and representatives of the different HGPs and campuses. As we consider Comrade Mumia Abu-Jamal as part of the Palestinian political prisoners movement and international political prisoners movement, we also consider the students movement as part of the Palestinian resistance and part of the international resistance, because you are not just a bunch of activists, you are leaders of this movement, you are cadres and organizers who are also today in a position to question your sacrifice and your position in the society and your class and where you stand, and to take position and clearly stand in a being in a offensive and defensive war at the same time. So this confrontation in the university and in the campus, as we consider the campus is a hub of this colonial institution, you are bringing also the Palestinian cause and the revolution to the core of the belly of the beast, which is represented by this colonial institution. And it's not a coincidence that this students movement is led by black people and Arab people and Muslim people and Indian people and people of color, along with white comrades who are coming from working class families and people of different representing different oppressed communities such as the LGBT community and so on and so on. This collective liberation today represented in the student movement as part of the Palestinian resistance and part of the offensive battle that is playing a very important role in the belly of the beast. This is what we learn from the Palestinian example, because also bringing this panel together with Comrade Mumia Abu-Jamal commenting and following up, like Comrade George Bahim Abdullah or the Palestinian prisoners, who are also being part of the students' movement by doing speeches and influencing students and following up and trying to help and support as much as we see. This is what we consider in Palestine, at least many of us, that this is the essence of the Palestinian national liberation movement. The first Palestinian conference for the Palestinian students took place in the 30s during British colonialism, recognizing the so-called United Kingdom as the head of the snake at that time, before the so-called United States of America. And at the meantime, the Palestinian students in the American University of Beirut or in Cairo, universities in the Arab world and in Africa was mobilizing in the 50s after the Nakba, the Palestinian National Liberation Movement, either from its patriotic right-wing side represented by Fatah or the left Arab nationalist movement represented by the PFLP. This comes from the students' movement. Again, we grow up as Palestinians about songs of Palestinian martyrs who didn't die during the confrontation with the Zionist colonialism, but who was assassinated in Akka, in north of Palestine, by British colonialism. So the political prisoners movement, and as a political movement, as a part of the Palestinian society, along with the student movement, this was the main base and still the main base of the Palestinian National Liberation Movement and the forces of resistance. Who are the freedom fighters in Gaza? They are the youth and the students. There is no one alive today from the representative of the students' blocks in Gaza, because all of them, they were part and still part of the resistance by all of its forms. Who are the freedom fighters in Jenin and Nablus and Tulkarem? Who are the freedom fighters in Birzeit University and Hebrew University and Al-Quds University? Who is facing tortures in the Israeli prison? They are the students as well. So we see this existential connection between the Palestinian students movement and the political prisoners movement in the struggle today. Who are the Palestinian political prisoners? They are the cadres of the first intifada and the second intifada. They are the leaders of the civil society. They are the community organizers in every refugee camps. They are the true potential of the Palestinian leadership that truly represent the Palestinian people, and they are the alternative of the corrupted Palestinian leadership that today hijacking the voice of the Palestinian people, normalizing with the Zionist state of Israel, selling out Palestine. After Oslo was signed, the day after of Oslo, a student from Fatah, from the political organization who signed the Oslo agreement, did an armed operation to make a statement to say that we are against Oslo, and he was martyred. So the Palestinian student, the day after of Oslo, they changed their activism from the campus to the armed struggle to make a political statement to the Palestinian people and to the enemy that we are against this liquidation project, and we are in the process of the in total liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. So the Palestinian political prisoners, they are not victims. They are the cadres and the leaders of the Palestinian people, either if they are children or women or men or whatever who they are. And that's why they are dangerous. That's why Comrade Mumia has been in prison for all of this time. That's why George Abdullah in prison. That's why Ahmed Sadat in prison. That's why those people in prison, because they want to imprison their role. And our commitment to our comrades also to keep facilitating their political participation and to play their political role even from behind bars and behind isolation walls.
Powerful, powerful, powerful work, brother. Powerful, powerful, powerful work, Muhammad. Really giving us a great examination about what's happening on the ground and what needs to happen as we kind of push forward, keeping Palestine in our center. I want to bring on Zach because a couple things that Muhammad just brought out speaks to some of the racial and class climate. And one of the things that you've shared in our previous conversations is the ways that the Black Student Union at Temple's campus has tried, to do the work. And part of the Palestine question is around land grab, and part of the convo around Temple is about gentrification. And so there are so many links that we can make. I'm wondering, Zach, just some of the racial and class issues that have been brought to bear by way of the BSU and how you all start to navigate that. Before I want to also bring in Maya for a very important legal question as we move forward in this work. So go ahead, Zach, please.
For sure. Um, that sort of dynamic and those sort of lines have always sort of existed within Temple. Recently, we just got a president in John Fry, who historically has been known to be less of a president, more of a realtor. And in that way, we know that he's someone that has precipitated the gentrification of many neighborhoods in Philadelphia, but also was pivotal in the destruction of UC townhomes in West Philadelphia. And so it's very fitting, I would say, and not a coincidence. Universities are not dumb. They have a bottom line, and they understand very much so why they put particular people in positions of power, particularly with regards to Mr. Fry. But I think in a lot of ways, our priorities are very out of whack. We could be having, as a Black, student population here at Temple, we could be having these conversations about what does someone like John Fry represent, not only for Temple University, but for North Philadelphia particularly. What did he mean for West Philadelphia? What makes us think he's not going to do the same thing in North? And so, in a lot of ways, we don't have these sort of conversations. We get stuck within particular sort of confines because our leadership is so neo-colonial and so opportunistic that it keeps us in these confined sort of conversations. We stuck talking about DEI. In a lot of ways, DEI is preparing a lot of our students not to go towards revolution, but to go towards careerism, professionalism, to remain stagnant within this sort of status quo. And so that's what Temple is sort of preparing a lot of Black students for within the university. And some decisions that students end up making is really informed by that environment. So the student is caught in this contradiction, it's particularly Black students. We're caught in this contradiction. The university tells you, hey, you got to fight. Actually, in fact, because you're exposed to all these books, all these classes, will give you all the information, will tell you, heck, all the contradictions that exist within society. But don't you dare go and fight against it. Don't you dare go and change it. Don't you dare question why anything is the way that it is and seek to try and fix it. the university places the student in this contradiction, and we wonder why so many students is confused, because in a lot of ways we don't have organization that can direct us in a coherent manner. A lot of us just want to stick to our degrees and get out. And so in a lot of ways, what I tried to do as a leader within my organization was trying to recenter the Black student movement or revive it. It's dead at Temple, but trying to revive it and trying to remind folks that the position you hold within, or the fact that you're at Temple right now, is for a particular reason. People struggled and fought for you to be at this university, and you're utilizing it to advance the oppressors' sort of advances and wishes and everything in the third. But you won't dare go down the street to down Cecil B. Moore Avenue and connect with the community. You're terrified of them. So in a lot of ways, a lot of the Black students here at Temple recognize the contradictions, but we need leadership. We need more organizations to speak up and to actually start to have a conversation and commit to actions that can fully allow for the university to understand that we're serious about this. So
Absolutely, Zach, and I think that you are one of those leaders that we are not only looking for, but we're proud to have in this moment in time, and we look forward to even beyond graduation, continuing to see what you continue to embark on for liberation. And one of the things that you mentioned was, about Temple, and I really want to bring Maya in because, as somebody who's in the space who provided some really eloquent opening comments about what is it going to mean to be in the sort of legal space, going forward. And I think for many of us, I think that you're not probably alone in this question, right? Like, how can we use these quote unquote degrees, and how do we use what we've been trained to do? I'd love to ask this question. The laws are constantly being reconfigured to suit the interests of those in power, right? We know that, we understand that, right? Often white supremacists, often hyper capitalists, often queer antagonistic, all the things, right? Um, what do you think is a way forward to sort of build true radical liberatory forces within that law space? But also, and this is something that I think is kind of speaks to some of the ongoing work for our listeners and watchers right now. Are there laws or bills out there that we should be aware of or following as it relates to dismantling the prison industrial complex, which again impacts Mumia, Abu-Jamal, and so many others?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll address the two separate questions. The first question, um, I believe that coalition building is essential. We know that the admin is not going to support us, so looking for fellow like-minded students and faculty at the law school has been like a key point to join our movement and to continue our movement. Also making sure to like build trust and start conversations with those who may not be as active but are willing to listen, and growing our movement is super important. One of the ways that we've been doing that is by hosting pro-Palestine sit-ins in visible spaces within the law school, not only engage with like our current peers and make sure that our presence is known, but also to show admitted and prospective students what they can expect when they come onto our campus. It really is important to learn to be mindful of who to trust within our campus, especially like with the people that are employed there. So knowing like which ones are able to step up and be on our side, and realizing our, like we said it before, realizing our different risk factors and making risk assessments to make sure that like we're not putting any students who are have different statuses at risk, and putting the people who can risk themselves forward, and making those choices within like our leadership as well, like making sure that um through the president who of your organization is someone who can risk having that name, that title with them and with whatever they do. um, and I guess sometimes we can get caught in the bubble of higher ed, as we were talking about before. And that was really evident during the Penn encampment, where we had to learn how to like decenter ourselves and decenter like the issues in the encampment and focus on our goal of a free Palestine. And having conversations with Mumia was like something that was so important to that movement, because it was so easy to get lost in the encampment. But Mumia brought our focus back, and hearing from him brought our focus back, which was amazing. In terms of your other question about the laws or bills out there, honestly, in my opinion, working within the system is not the way to dismantle the complex. No, the law was created, the legal system was created for this purpose, was to create it to police Black people, to police slaves. And there are some laws out there that like the Clean State Slate initiative in Pennsylvania to help aid reentry after incarceration, or like the Act 44, which helps narrow like probation offense is. But these initiatives are mainly helping for reentry. What about entry? What about preventing people from entering the system? And I feel like that can only happen from diverting the funds completely from these fascist pigs to community care, to helping uplift the entirety, the people in the US. Unfortunately, I don't see this any administration, any legal body, any official body being the one to do that. It needs to happen from us. And I mean, just look at what's happening in Kensington and the militarization of the police to combat drug addiction, which is a health issue, a socioeconomic issue. It is not something that can be policed. And I don't think that on it, even though I'm in law school, I don't believe that the law is the way to solve this problem. I believe that dismantling the system is important.
Indeed, I think that we're going to hear the word dismantle a lot tonight. Needs to be said. No uncertain terms, this is a moment in time, 2025, if that's the year, right? But, the reality that we have so much to unpack, so much to unlearn, and then ultimately so much to build once we've destroyed those systems and structures that don't serve us. I really want to bring in Rishi and Nicholas because I think that, as I'm hearing everybody share, we're talking a lot about prison, we're talking a lot about Palestine, talking a lot about organizing, right? And really what it means to organize. And I think a huge part of this, particularly for our folks checking in from, again, across the country and the world, is those lessons learned, right? Being able to kind of share out, what to do and not to do. So if we could start with perhaps Rishi, what did you learn most about yourself and the comrades during the complexities of the encampments and other on-campus organizing with Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP? What did you learn about yourself and your comrades during that moment of time, and what do you continue to learn? And then that'll be also for you, Nicholas, as well.
So, before I answer your question, it's a great question, Gabe. I didn't get a chance to say this before. Just want to draw attention real quick to the 1,500 Kashmiri political prisoners who have been detained by the terrorist Indian state. And like reiterate how important it is to keep in mind like what Muhammad said, that like all are political prisoners when we do this work. And in relation to my own experiences as an organizer, being constantly engaged with work revolving around political prisoners, or being constantly like informed and continually advocating for political prisoners, um I've had to honestly reassess my own position as a student organizer. I think historically, because of how the student movement has been, hyper amplified, that a lot of student organizers have this warped idea that their position as a student organizer inherently is revolutionary. Yet, in relation like what Zach said before, students are a petite bourgeois class. We are essentially, at least in the context of the West, we are essentially advocating for the removal and the destruction of systems we inherently benefit from. And that's something that had kind of had to slap me in the face through my experiences as an organizer, because it's when us as students don't ground our work in the real class struggle of the community around us, when us as students don't ground our work in, you know, like our local communities who we're actively displacing, when we don't ground our work in actual principled struggle and in actual principled political goals that don't just seek to, you know, like Bina said, like, and focus on divestment, you know, just focus on our own like imperialist institutions. When we don't ground our work in like the class and community, um, our movement fails. It fizzles out because and like dies because there's no real like class motivation behind it. There's no real driving force. You are convincing a group of petite bourgeois students to like agitate against the system that they inherently benefit from. That's not a long-lasting strategy. That is a recipe for disaster. And when we do, at least in the West, face repression, you know, and we aren't grounded in an actual struggle. Like Muhammad said, we students in the West are the Palestinian resistance, or at least part of the Palestinian resistance. When we don't ground ourselves in the fact that we have a real job to do, that we have actual political goals and means to accomplish those political goals, we face repression, we face our disciplinary charges, we face violence from the state, and we go underground. We fizzle out and die. It's like become like a politics of cowardice. And, you know, so that's what I've learned about myself and my own class position through organizing. I've seen this happen time and time again with student organizers. And I'm empathetic to the frustrations people in the community have when we, you know, like advocate for Palestine and don't ground our work in work that is inherently connected to anti-imperialist struggles happening right here. You know, we live in a city where the move bombings happen. Like I live in a city where the move bombings happen. And us not grounding our work in like any anti-imperial struggle that we are inherently like connected to has been our downfall and has stopped us from like accomplishing our like timely like extremely necessary political goals. Uh so yeah.
Thank you, free 'em all. And folks, we will be celebrating, or rather honoring, the Day of Remembrance for MOVE in the 40 years since that May 13th, 1985 bombing on this coming Tuesday, May 13th. So next month, May 13th, 1985 was when the bomb happened. We'll be honoring 40 years of remembrance on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025 at the intersection of Osage Avenue and Cobbs Creek in West Philadelphia. And it'll be action there that you won't want to miss. It will be historic. You'll be there starting at 5 p.m. So if you can't make it around the city of Philadelphia and all parts in the tri-state area, come on out 5 p.m. at Cobbs Creek in Osage. Shout out to all the organizers, particularly our brother Mike Africa Jr. For leading the way for this work, and all the MOVE members who led the way for the past 50 plus years for Liberation for Life. Nicholas, if you can't answer that same question, if you can, please, brother.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pick up right where Rishi left off. Um, I feel like one of the biggest lessons I learned was that relationship building is crucial for ensuring the sustainability of our movements. You know, it's one thing to just sort of come together because you have sort of this shared passion or politics around an issue and just be like, oh, well, you know, we're in this space at the same time and then that's it. And then when we leave, we're disconnected. But I think it's really important that we center building relationships as comrades, building relationships outside of our campuses. And I think the encampment was interesting because you had, especially thinking about the racial politics we were talking about earlier, you know, there were a lot of Black students here. We were advocating for a more expansive agenda that included the gentrification of Harlem, that included being in community and in conversation with folks who were already doing that work. And there was pushback. There was resistance in terms of, you know, oh, is this going to stretch us too thin? Oh, we don't have those relationships there. And so I think it was important for me to learn about the value of relationship building, especially across difference, but also to be critical in that, to be willing to push back against people who feel like we don't have the capacity, or pushing back because it's inconvenient, or pushing back because it challenges their own political beliefs in some way. And so I feel like for me, it was really valuable to sort of, even in that moment, decenter decenter the campus in the way that I thought about Palestine and the way that I thought about divestment, and sort of building the connections and bridges that I had in Harlem, in the Bronx, in Washington Heights, and saying, hey, like, y'all have been doing this work. Y'all have been advocating around Palestine, around Black liberation, around any of the gentrification that my university is doing. So, like, how can we support you beyond sort of just, oh, well, like, how can you come and support the encampment? So I think that's really important. I think that political education is always, we say it all the time, but I think especially in the encampment, it was, you feel like you're responding to all these different crises and sort of this mounting pressure at once. And I think you can lose sight of the fact that this is an opportunity for people to learn about these issues, to learn about and sort of construct a politics that's built around practice, but also around knowledge and around history. And so I think it's been important for me to keep reading and keep learning. And then I think lastly, I'd probably say that I think care. I feel like care is something that always is like a tense conversation in organizing spaces, because some people are like, no, we got to go, you got to be on 10, like, you got to move. But I think that we especially saw it last year, and we're really seeing it this year here, where people are so burnt out and so sort of frustrated with the way that the system is adapting, the way that a lot of the other students on campus are responding to what's happening, that it's producing disillusionment. We're losing people from the organizing spaces and from the work. And so I think that it's important that we sort of create those spaces and environments where folks that are invested in the work can find care and can find community and rest, but also do so knowing that there is a large enough contingent of people that are still applying pressure, and realizing that it doesn't have to take away from the work, and that it actually is a part of building a sustainable movement. So yeah, I think those are probably the biggest lessons, but there's a lot.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for that answer. And I really appreciate that. As we continue forward with tonight's conversation, then thanks to everybody tapping in via YouTube and Facebook. One thing that we'll share is that if you can continue to put your questions in the chat, we are picking up those questions so that we can make sure that we can have a robust conversation. We definitely want to hear your voice. So please continue to do those questions, provide those. We're going to get to those in a few short minutes. And next up, what we want to do is we're actually going to hear more from Mumia Abu-Jamal, particularly a clip of what he spoke about the CUNY 8 from a couple of months ago. Let's go.
Drop all charges against the CUNY 8 by the coherence of the CUNY, or City University of New York, administrators, and the NYPD. The protests of people outraged by the carnage suffered by the people in the Gaza Strip has resulted in a rise of repression against people here in American colleges and universities. Students have been even threatened and charged with felonies for daring to protest against Zionist bombings of Palestinians in Gaza. And some have been threatened by CUNY's funders with denial of jobs when, I should say, if they graduate. This is repression of a high order. CUNY has a distinct history of teaching the children of the working class. What are they teaching there? Subservience? Since when is it wrong to oppose oppression? Many Americans, learning of the horrors visited upon the indigenous people of America, the so-called Indians, tell themselves that if they were alive then, they would be protesting such an injustice. Well, that was then.
What they do today matters. Here's your chance. Martin Luther King said, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. What of the Zionist occupation that has lasted for almost a century in violation of international law? The bombing and killing of tens of thousands of Gazans, men, women, and babies. Isn't that worth protest? Drop all charges against the CUNY 8. Let free speech, the First Amendment, rule. With love, not fear. This is Mumia, Abu-Jamal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mumia. And once again, we say happy birthday as he turns 71 years of age today. It may not be the happiest because he's not on the outside with us, but please know that his words and his mind and his thoughts are always with us daily as he provides his commentaries, provides his remarks, and thinks about us and the world that we all want to see. We're going to get to some questions from the chat. First up, I want to get to our good Baba out of the Jersey family. Shout out to Baba Zaid Muhammad with the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. He asks, what does freedom or a liberated future look like for you? And so I think I want to bring in Muhammad on that, and I think I want to bring in Zach for that. What does freedom or a liberated future look like for you? And so maybe let's see if we can bring in Muhammad, and let's see if we can bring in Zach. And so again, what does freedom or a liberated future look like for you? Let's start with you, Muhammad, and then go to Zach.
I mean, it's a very difficult question, but it should be also very simple question. I mean, you comrades mentioned that the word dismantling should be mentioned a lot. I think the first process of freedom is to dismantle prisons, to dismantle the system, to dismantle the colonies, to dismantle the United States of America, to dismantle Canada, to dismantle Australia, to dismantle the colonial institution of white supremacy based in Europe and in Brussels, to dismantle Zionism, to dismantle fascism in India, and to dismantle this colonialist bases in the Philippines and elsewhere. Future should be how we see the Turtle Island, or where people live in a society where it will be led not by the fascist pig of Trump, but by Mumia Abu-Jamal. And the icons of this country should be Malcolm X, not the white settlers who are criminals. And I mean, yeah, free Palestine from the river to the sea means for me an equal society, and a society out of racism, out of Zionism, out of supremacy, out of apartheid, where the Palestinian people and everyone have right for free healthcare and popular education, not only a free education, a democratic education, not only a free education, a democratic society based on a real society on equality and justice, and a freedom where the Palestinian people can just move in a dignity, where the people have right to self-determination for their resources and against all blendering of people resources. And this is what the beginning of a freedom means for me.
Zach?
Most definitely. Freedom is definitely, for me, a very open-ended question. And it definitely means that it does include the freedom of all oppressed peoples across the globe. And I think that it's something that if we take a couple of minutes to really try and internalize and interpret, you start to see all types of ways we try to go down to really build that question out. For me, it really just requires not just a redistribution of wealth, and not just a redistribution of resources to marginalized individuals, but it's also about questioning how our relationships to one another are informed, and what social relationships, what is the core sort of aspects of our social relationships with one another? How is it that we're able to interact with each other? How are you able to, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food in your stomach? Are you able to go down the street without, feeling as if someone is going to judge you or treat you in a different way because of how you are? And so for me, freedom in a lot of ways is developing a society that allows for individuals to interpret themselves not only in relationship to one another, but also for themselves. And it allows for that relationship to grow, and be fostered in a way that's embroidered with care and also mutual responsibility. So I think for me that's meaningful to me, but it also means, fighting for it. You don't get peace unless you fight for it, and you definitely don't get freedom unless you fight for it. And that means that everybody gotta, have that sense of mutual responsibility, care, and action to achieve it.
And Comrade Gabe, if you allow me
Please,
just to
please.
say one thing. In a letter that Comrade Ahmed Sadat wrote from prison, and it was titled "The Prisons, the Black Liberation Movement, and the Struggle for Palestine." In one of the paragraphs, of course, he spoke about Comrade Mumia Abu-Jamal, the Black Panthers visiting the camps, refugee camps in Jordan, and building these connections with the Palestinian Liberation Movement. But he mentioned something in a very interesting way, how the road of freedom also started by breaking the laws. As we are speaking in a panel that calling for twisting the laws, and those laws are used against us. I think the beginning of this battle is by breaking those laws, and in the meantime, for sure, protecting ourselves and our community and our comrades from those laws who have been used against us. But in this process of breaking the laws, also we are fighting our freedom. And this means in the struggle, in the campus, and in the revolution, in every sector we are, the moment that we are engaged in the struggle, the moment also we are feeling liberated and we are touching freedom. And that's what built that commitment with ourselves to be part of this movement until the end.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you so much for that. We'll get to our next question. I see that this one here is from Comrade Betsy. And this question is, so Palestine Rights was able to hold their literature festival on Penn's campus at the end of September 2023, just weeks before October 7th. What, if any, impact did this have on the student movements? Maybe we can tackle that, Rishi.
Yeah, before I answer this question, I just want to like reiterate what Muhammad just said. Those were beautiful, beautiful words. And I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. It's really, really grounding to hear that. Speaking of Ahmed Sadat, Palestine Rights was essentially a literature festival organized by Susan Abu Hawa. It was one of the largest Palestinian literature festivals that have happened ever in the West. And I didn't help organize Palestine Rights. I tabled at Palestine Rights, and I attended for a while as a student organizer. And to say that Palestine Rights was allowed to happen on Penn's campus is a little bit of a stretch. Palestine Rights was barely allowed to happen. And when it did happen, it ended up being the subject of like a congressional hearing. So, you know, it was definitely but what it opened us all to was like especially student organizers who hadn't been grounded in community work, who hadn't been grounded in like political education outside of like literature. It kind of like it's one thing to read about, imperialism. It's one thing to read about the state as an institution you need to dismantle. It's one thing to read about and understand in theory the concept that Penn is a terrorist settler colony which is violently occupying West Philadelphia. But it's another thing to like, see their response and see their like essentially like ridiculous lengths that they'd go to stifle a literature festival on their campus to hyper police, hyper surveil, and like go after like like through like legal, like you like use the state, use the legal mechanisms of the state to go after organizers for a literature festival. You know, in that sense, I think that in the through the like experience of Palestine rights, a lot of students came into crisis organizing that happened after Al-Aqsa flood with that perspective. You know, like a little bit understanding that. To be fair, we got to understand it a lot more after. Um, but yeah, that's what really informed in terms of like the panels and the content of Palestine rights. It was like it was an amazing festival. It was incredible. It was truly like an immeasurably incredible space of discourse. It was the first time where a lot of people were kind of introduced to like political discourse and Palestinian liberation in terms of like you had panelists disagreeing with each other, arguing, presenting their presenting their stories and their political analysis in a way that like hadn't happened, at least in my lifetime, to that scale in like in Philly. So yeah, so in that sense, I would say like effective student organizing. Obviously, none of us could have predicted that Al-Aqsa flood would happen just like a month later.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richie. And we want to try to get to a few more of these questions. Thank you all for sharing these questions. They're very important questions for the future of our movement. Let's get to Alyssa, Comrade Alyssa, who asks, I am a student at a campus whose divestment movement has also been inspired by Mumia. I would love to hear more from student organizers about how to sustain movements over a long term when students move in and out of universities so frequently? Great question. That's I'm sure it's been asked for generations. Maybe let's start with Nicholas, and if anybody else wants to chime in, feel free. Let's start with with you, Nicholas.
Yeah, that's an age-old question, isn't it? I think, well, for one, I think in terms of the movement work that we've been doing now, I think um, a lot of students come into again, I think sort of moving beyond a single issue, single moment, reactionary political framework, I think is really, really important. So I think a lot of people, it's really easy to sort of, oh, I'm on campus for this set amount of years, and whatever happens during that time, I'm here to support. But when I'm gone, I've moved on to professional life and I'm done. And I think that it was really important for us when we were having even just sort of like casual conversations in the encampment, but also when we were doing sort of our like community like education initiatives and programs, really emphasizing that this is a lifelong question. This is a lifelong issue and journey that you're on, and that it's not just your politics exists in or are practiced in this one space in this one moment, but really recognizing that your personal, your professional, your spiritual life is all entangled in this work. And so I think that it's important that people, one, really emphasize that there are multiple ways to stay involved and stay invested in this work beyond sort of just your time on campus. I think, especially here at Columbia, I think a lot of students have, myself included, really tried to build community and relationships off campus with other political spaces. Once again, really emphasizing that there were people doing work here in Harlem long before I got here, long before Columbia got here even. So I think it's important to recognize that like there are spaces even around your campus community that you can stay engaged in and stay invested in, especially because a lot of students, at least here, I don't know if it's the same for y'all in Philly, but a lot of students here stay in the city after school, whether it's for work or for continuing their education or something. So you're still in the space. You're still ingratiated in the environment that is either contributing to or affected by like all of the systems that we're talking about. And so you can't just turn that off when you move to Midtown or when you move to Brooklyn or whatever else. And so I think it's important that people recognize that like there are ways to stay involved and engaged even when you leave the space. And I think that it's important as organizers that we not only emphasize that in the work that we do, but also live that. Like I think it's important that we show that there is a way to stay committed. A lot of us were involved in justice work and abolitionist work and everything long before we got to school. And there are ways to obviously show that we can stay involved after.
Absolutely. Does anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I completely agree with all those points. And I think one thing I'll just add to that is making sure to engage with any incoming students, making sure that the new students that are coming in are your targets. Like we're doing that, like making like any orientation events, we're constantly there. We're tabling, our presence is known. Any admitted students events, we're there. And making sure that people know that this campus will not, like, maybe the administration won't be supportive, but the students are there for these movements. And also like making sure that the new students that are involved come to at least one movement or one action in order to increase their participation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to get to another question in the chat, and then again, continue to answer these questions, folks, or raise these questions. Even if you have comments, we'll try to get to a couple comments as well. But I do want to cover questions first. Next, I want to ask a question from the comrade Sam Rise. What up, Sam Rise? Sam says, "Greetings and thanks, beloved comrades and mentors. We know that youth organizers and student organizers are always the most intrepid forces in our movements. So thank you for your love and your labor." They say, "I want to ask you all what you need from older and elder movement community in these moments. How can we be accountable to your leadership within and without encampment spaces, right? Also, what do you hope the broader constellation of community will learn from your work?" Great question, and I want to make sure that maybe we can start off with Bina, perhaps, because Bina did have some good thoughts on that. And again, if anybody wants to chime in, because again, we do have some Q&A going on, but again, this is being streamed, so everybody may not be seeing people's answers. So I want to make sure that it gets covered for everyone. All right, Bina.
Great. Thank you, comrade, for that question. I don't know. I think I have a hard time sort of receiving the kind of praise that deems like students in particular as the bravest among us, because I just don't think we are. To be honest, like I think the student movement has a lot of cowardice problems, and that was like a big thing that we ran into last spring with Palestine. Is the fact that like Rishi spoke to the class character of a lot of students. Being like the petty bourgeoisie, and how like even in radical student spaces there is this sort of undercurrent like of desire to preserve our futures. So like we do things like these risk assessments or like whatever kind of actions where we're like, well, I want to participate in action, but also like if I get expelled then I won't be able to have a job later, and then like I won't be able to graduate, etc., etc. And like that's fine if you want to talk like that, but like we can't say that and then also claim to be the bravest section of a movement when like literally like not even like political prisoners, some of them were students. Like when I think of like David Gilbert, who was a member of the Weather Underground and the May 19th Communist Organization, he got his start in Students for a Democratic Society. He spent over 20 years in prison for aiding the Black Liberation Army. A lot of those Weather Underground comrades did time. May 19th comrades did time. They were students. So like there's always going to be people who are far braver than us. And so like I think that is part of my sort of initial sort of reaction, maybe hesitancy to accept that kind of praise from anybody, because the student movement has a lot to learn. And I think it's not just the student movement. I think in general the American left is full of cowardice. It's one of our biggest problems, and I'm not exempt from that either. I'm not saying it's a me problem too. I'm a coward as much as anyone else is. It's all relative, but like going back to that issue of like what do we need from our elders, and what it's also like how do we be accountable to our elders as much as y'all are accountable to us. I talked about this a little bit in the chat, but it's like we can't be afraid of one another. We can't and we can't be afraid of criticism and self-criticism. Like elders need to be able to know that their criticisms of us will be received when our analysis is like not deep enough, when we're doing some bullshit that needs to be called out as bullshit. And also young people need to know that our criticism of elders will be received with respect and honor, because like frankly like some of these movement elders in these spaces, like I got preyed upon by fucking movement elders when I was like an 18-year-old, and like there be predators in our movement, so like that's a problem. So like so I think what we need from our elders and what our elders need from us is this shattering of any kind of prestige. Like you are my comrade, and I'm gonna learn from you, but you better be willing to learn from me too. Because you don't know everything and I don't know everything, but iron sharpens iron and steel sharpens steel. So like, let's meet under that tree. As June Jordan said, let's meet under that tree that hasn't even been planted yet, and let's start to talk. But yeah, there's no prestige in that conversation. There's no hero worship. There's no celebrities, no bullshit, nothing like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Bina. And we're going to try to close in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So we'll try to keep our answers a little bit more brief than before, but we are going to shoot for the next 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 max, because we do want to try to get as much from our community involved in tonight's, again, amazing honoring of Mumia Abu-Jamal. All these questions tonight are questions and ideas and thoughts that Mumia Abu-Jamal continues to wrestle with from behind the walls at SCI Mahanoy, right? And so these are things that he's written about, wrote about, spoken about, and really all of our leaders do the same as well, right? And as we say Palestine, we also have to say this moment again, free the folks all around the world, right? So we got to say free Congo, right? We got to say free Puerto Rico, right? We got to say free Sudan, right? We got to say all these places that are currently just under attack in the greatest sense of repression around the world, suppression around the world, those who have been, again, marginalized to the umpteenth extent. We're seeing, free Kashmir, right? I mean, there's so much to be discussed. Just the global tentacles of how our open enemy has frankly tried to work to destroy people around on Earth. And so, what it's going to take for a people's movement to rise up again in militancy and also in an offensive standpoint to destroy these enemies. And so, I want to get to perhaps use that briefly, and then I have a question for Muhammad. Our comrade Tony asked the question, where do you see the intersectionality of Palestinian politics with IT, with Haiti? And perhaps Muhammad, if you want to jump in on that as well, feel free. Again, the question is, where do you see the intersectionality of Palestinian politics with Haiti? Let's start with you, Zach, and then Muhammad.
Yeah, for sure. In a lot of ways, imperialism is something that impacts not just, one area, just one area. It impacts itself globally, internationally. Haiti is a present example of that, in that the neo-colonial leadership within Haiti has thoroughly quashed or has delayed any sort of ability for Haiti not only to be independent and to be free from the tentacles of imperialism, but to also have not only a sense of dignity, but also a sense of self-determination. And the same can be said for Palestine. We see that imperialism and these same sort of colonial ties, a lot of Western powers want to hold on to these colonial sort of ties, these colonial sort of linkages. And so in a lot of ways, Haiti was one of the, first Black republic to not only just emancipate itself from slavery, but we also see that it was actually trying to attempt to build something that was independent, and that's dangerous. And Palestine is trying to establish itself as an independent nation, one that is very dangerous to any sort of colonial and imperialist project. It's a very dangerous thing in what you're doing. And there's influences with that, because Haiti, how is it that people all across the world, Africans all across the world, were so thoroughly influenced by Haiti? You have Africans in Britain who are so influenced by the Haitian Revolution everywhere. And the same can be said about Palestine, the same can be said about Congo, the same can be said about Sudan, that these liberation movements need to be put at the forefront in our understanding of these linkages related to imperialism, because the colonial projects, the imperialist projects, they're still the same. And so that's why for me, it's never really a contention of, oh, if Palestine get free, what happens with Haiti? or if Haiti get free, what about Palestine? That's a success. That's a victory. If both are free, it doesn't really matter if one get free or the other first. We understand it as a victory if Palestine is free because Palestinians are human beings just as much as Africans are in Haiti as well. And we understand that if imperialism is attacked in one place and it's also being attacked in another place, we see that it can be brought to its knees. And so that's why I feel like advocating for both a free Palestine, a free Haiti, a free Congo, is so very meaningful because it not only allows for our movements to be international, it also makes a very bold statement for what we want to see in the future with our movements.
Thank you, Zach. I'm not sure, Muhammad, if you want to jump in here, please.
Yes, very beautiful to hear you, Zach, and all the other comments. I'm learning a lot today, so I'm very happy again to be with all of you here. I will pick up on what Zach have said. I will not add too much more. It's very clear. I totally agree with him, but also I will just add more that sometimes we always repeat that Palestine is in the center of the thing, and I don't agree very much on that. I think the Zionist enemy is in the center. We are not the important of the Zionist colonial project is important, not for as they claim for the Jewish people, but the Zionist colonial project is important for imperialism and capitalism. It's important for the United States and important for the EU and so on. And that's why the Zionist movement is involved in the genocide that's happening today in Congo. They are involved in the siege happening today on Cuba and on Venezuela. They are involved with India against the Kashmiri people. We see the Zionist role against many Latin American movement in assassination and so on. And we see the role of the Zionist movement in the United States and in other places. So that's why our enemy is very important. Our enemy is very much connected. And that's why all of those struggles are like in a logistical wise, we are connected. That's why I do believe also the role of the student movement, not only to build this connection within the campus and the community, but also with the struggles internationally. That many of you here also have their connection with their national liberations movement, and they come from, their family come from, their community come from. So here where we should do the connections from the United States between Kashmir and the Palestinian people in Palestine and in the refugee camps in Lebanon and Jordan. We have to use our will and our privileges since we understand where we are and we are within all of this complexity. We can keep talking about it very much, but then how we use all of this, even in privileges, for the struggle and for the liberation. I cannot fly, I cannot travel, but many of you can. I cannot just buy a ticket and fly. We are under siege, we are under many, some of us are not. How we can use this in this struggle? So I think if we speak also about the liberation of Haiti or the liberation of Palestine, I see also which Palestine should be liberated. Because since you say even we as a students movement, we are not all the same. We, the Palestinian people, are not football team supporters. We are people with different classes, with different interests. There is some Palestinian people today have been slaughtered, and some Palestinian businessmen who still can travel from Tel Aviv airport with a VIP card given by the Israelis. You have a Palestinian leadership who are fighting in the first front line in prisons or in Gaza, and you have a Palestinian leadership who are going on media making comment and attacking the Palestinian resistance. So we need a free Palestine that should train freedom fighters from around the world. We should free Palestine that provides support and aid for any international liberation movement that want to continue to fight capitalism and imperialism and colonialism. Free Palestine should host all refugees. Free Palestine should host all political prisoners who are in exile. Free Palestine should assist the international movement for against racism and against white supremacy and against so on. Palestine should provide this support for everyone who contributed to the struggle of the Palestinian people, the South African people who are in very deep relationship with the Palestinian people. How these connections today we should build up on it in the future societies that we are imagining, in the social way that we are imagining. What the role of a free country today should provide support for other people we see if Palestine is liberated, this means this is a nail to dismantle the United States of America, and this is where people will take they represent themselves and so on. Then what kind of support the U.S. aid will be? It will be U.S. aid colonial support, or people to people support and people to people connection and being part in one joint struggle. And this is where I want to touch just slightly about the role of the students and youth, because we today in a kind of a system we live in, and with this all of this NGOization and so on, I mean about the question of elderly and young and so on, we sometimes think that youth and students are subgroup in the movement. Like, okay, it's a file, as sometimes reactionary groups deal with the feminist struggle. Oh, the woman file, there is a committee will work to fix this woman file, and you as a youth go there and build your youth organization and make your youth experience in the campus. And this is very much undermining the role of this part of the society in the struggle. I mean, self-blaming is not helpful in the movement. But then, if we, who was the co-founders of the Black Panthers? They were elders. They were young people in their 20s. Who were the political bureau of the PFLP, the first general secretary of the PFLP? George Habash wasn't 75 years old. He was 20 something. Ghassan Kanafani, when he was martyred, he was 36, after he was political bureau member and co-founders and so on of a political movement. So you should see yourself as leaders of this movement and leaders of to build your political organizations. More diversity in the movement doesn't mean it's more factional and fights and divisions. We need different sectors in the movement to rebuild, and no one will build this apart from the youth. So you are capable to build the movement and to build the organization, not only to be part of that movement, and then we all should support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Again, powerful, 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 powerful testimonies tonight. Powerful words, speaking really from a lot of experience, folks. What I want to do next is go to see if I can have one person answer this next question. If I can try to sneak in, I guess, one or two more. Again, thanks everybody for your robust questions. They're really powerful questions, in fact, for us to think about Mumia on today and his birthday in the Global Political Project. We have Comrade Trevor, who asked a question on PE. We got one person asked this question again, right? How do we bridge the gap? In my experience as a student organizer, students are more resistant and hesitant to develop political consciousness than to attend protests. How do we open the door for those without political consciousness to get politically educated when they resist reading the writings of Mumia, of Mao, of Fanon, etc.? If we could have one person answer that question, that'd be great.
I can answer the question.
Jump in, Rishi.
Sure, for sure. So I think it's always very, very tricky when you are dealing with students and a student demographic, because again, like largely, at least in the West, these are communities which, like, it's a class which is benefiting from the institution you're trying to turn them against overall. However, I think what's always really important is find a way to politicize their own struggle and politicize their own identity, regardless of what it is. And this is really, really easy. I think it's much easier with students of color who already have that politicized identity in the West of being like students of color, people of color, being marginalized and racialized under a white supremacist power structure. In my experience, these students are very, very receptive to theory that speaks to them and theory that inherently, like politicizes their own experience. The tendency, especially in the West, is for the state to depoliticize like the student as an individual, just as like someone that goes to college, has a college experience, whatever that is, and like graduates and gets a job and maybe goes to parties in the process. Like that's what the state wants. The state wants your experience to be like a sum of like, just these things you go through, and not something inherently political, not something where you're participating in an institution that is actively creating like investing and funding and developing technology to facilitate genocide and occupation across the world. If you can politicize someone's identity, then at the start, like they will, in my experience, they're way, way more receptive to any form of political education that comes after, because they understand that, like, to a degree, they're invested in this. Their class interest is like integral and invested in like whatever you are like fighting for. In this case, it would be the liberation of Palestine and the end of imperialism.
Thank you much, Rishi. That was super appreciated. I want to get to, this interesting question. Again, if one person can sort of chime in on it, that'd be fantastic. Just as we begin to get ready to close. Again, once again, thank you all for chiming in. First of all, we also want to thank, many of the elders who've been on the front lines for so many decades, for which, many of us wouldn't be here. We heard earlier that it was Mumia's voice on the encampments that helped to sort of bring folks out. And I think it's important to also state that, I can remember being, on the student side, many, many moons ago, and seeing this, person of short stature come to my campus when I was a junior. And she told the story of Move. And she told the story of, what happened at Move, and this bombing and the fire burning and the 66 homes that were destroyed. And her name is Ramona Africa. And I told her then, as I always tell this story, what I'll say now is that, I'm going to work once college is done, to not only work to free the Move 9, but also to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. And that's been staying since that time period. But she was just one of many, many elders who have been in this movement. Mama Pam. We have to bring in some of our folks who have been released, from Jalil Mutakim, to those who have even passed on, like Albert Woodfox, so many of those who are helping us now have been freed, like Sundiata Akoli, like Herman Bell. These are names that we should all know. Oscar Lopez Rivera, freed. And these are all people who continue to be on the front lines, and certainly people who we can continue to gain information from. And so we do have a question, and it's a great thought from our dear Mama Julia Wright, who says, when we win victories, when Gaza imposes a ceasefire, however brief, to Bibi and Trump, when Traore out of Burkina Faso, as we know, survives the 18th attempt against his life, when the first female president of Namibia expels 500 ugly Americans, how do we allow those victories not to be stolen? So it's more of a principled, philosophical question. But if anybody wants to sort of tackle that idea, right, of part of it's rhetorical, but if anybody does have a thought on that, feel free. How do we allow victories not to be stolen?
Is it okay if I try and speak on that real quick?
Please, yep.
I always think of Amilcar Cabral, tell no lies, claim no easy victories. But I think an important part in not letting any victories go to waste is remembering that it's our responsibility as so-called organizers to have the skills and wherewithal and initiative to go amongst the people, go to the masses, and explain why these are victories, and explain why people should identify with these victories. Like, for instance, like, why should, like, somebody, just like the person waiting for the bus on the corner in Philly, why does it matter to them that oh, so I didn't realize my camera was off. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Why does it matter to the person waiting for the bus in Philly that the Palestinian resistance was able to impose a ceasefire on the Zionist entity? Why does it matter to folks in Harlem that that our prisoners are freed? So like being able to have the ability to listen to people and explain over and over again why these are victories, why these are important, and then the next part of that is being able to explain and organize with people and say, okay, we won this victory, but we have a lot more victories that we need to win, and we need you. I need you. We need you to fight for those victories. And so our strength in being able to claim and harness the power of these victories from people's movements is proportionate to our ability to educate and disseminate and loop in other people on why these are victories, because we know it's victories. We know it's a victory when a red triangle goes above an Israeli soldier's head and the pig gets iced. Like, we know that's a victory. We know it's a victory when prisoners break out. We know it's a victory when all these things happen. But a lot of people don't necessarily know that. And it's not their fault they don't know that. It's our fault.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. This has been really a fantastic conversation, fantastic dialogue. If you're in the chat, put in your fists, put in your emojis, put in your fire and your flames, all the things. This has been great. It's been an amazing dialogue. You have not only showed your commitment, but also, we understand that this is going to be an ongoing struggle. What I want to get to is, what do we do next, right? Once again, if you want to get involved with this work, we certainly implore you, wherever you are, to get involved. Join work. Make sure that political prisoners, in some regard, is a part of your mission and vision. Make sure to acknowledge, a political prisoner in your work that you can center, that you can write to, that you can donate to. This is all very, very, very important work. And so we want to make sure that we can cover that with you all. Essentially, what I want to do is real quick is just bring up again for those folks who did tap in late, just ways that you can also support what's coming down the pike. And so hopefully folks can see things that are coming down the pike. Once again, if you're able to, folks, if you can want to write Mumia Abu-Jamal, or they're in front of you, please write, please screenshot. Smart Communications, PADOC, Mumia Abu-Jamal, AM 8335, SEI Mahanoy, PO Box 33028, St. Petersburg, Florida 33733. In addition, if you need a letter writing guide, again, the QR code is on the screen. It will give you information on how to best write letters. Any questions if this is your first time writing a letter. All right, so please utilize that QR code. Once again, in New York City, the Global Justice in Mumia Abu-Jamal, Saturday, April 26th from 1 to 3 p.m. at Union Square Park, South End, in New York City on 14th Street between Broadway and University Place, across from Whole Foods, Union Square. Please be there. For more info, visit freemumia.com. And also to donate, you can go to mobilization number 4, mumia.com/donate/1, as you see on the screen. And then also please donate and follow the commentaries at www.prisonradio.org. The final question for our amazing comrades tonight is this question, and I just want to do it in 1 or 2 sentences as we close. And it's something that we need to kind of all build on. The question is, we will free Mumia because and how? We will free Mumia Abu-Jamal because blank and how? I want to start actually on this question, if I can, with Maya, and then I want to jump to Nicholas. We will free Mumia because, and how will we do it?
We will free Mumia because we are here together and ready to have this conversation. And how we will do it is by resistance, is by physically being there, resisting, and the beauty of resistance movements.
We will free Mumia because he's ours, and so we have no choice. And we will do so by unrelenting, unending revolution.
Zach, we will free Mumia because
We will free Mumia because it's necessary. It's quite damn near important and consequential to our livelihoods today. And how we're going to do it is doing things like this, meeting with each other, organizing with each other, and most importantly, creating a revolutionary culture. Largely because we have to. And it will inspire a lot of those going forward if we do.
Rishi, we will free Mumia because
We will free Mumia because it is our job to destroy imperialism, destroy the United States, and destroy capitalism and the system of extraction that it relies on to perpetuate itself. And we will do it by organizing in a manner that actively undermines and destabilizes the legitimacy and the power of the state and the power and legitimacy of capitalism.
Muhammad, we will free Mumia because
We will free Mumia because we have to, and because it's our duty, and because we need him more than he needs us. And to give a clear message to the enemy that we will never be broken and we will never let our comrades. And how? By all means. Just by all means.
that's right. Bina, we will free Mumia because and how.
We will free Mumia because to abandon our political prisoners would be abandoning hopes of revolution succeeding. And we will free Mumia by means that we are yet to discover. And through means by which we are yet to perfect, and we are yet to even know are possible. And so I think we will free Mumia by being open to using any means necessary to do so, because there are some of those means that we just don't even understand, we don't even comprehend, we don't even know yet. So
Thank you. Well, tonight, family, that has been Twisted Laws, Mumia, Universities, and Palestine. You've heard from our organizers and panelists this evening. We thank you all once again for tapping in with us. It's been really a powerful, powerful, powerful night. And we hope that you will take these calls, these ideas, this visioning towards your work to build momentum and to continue to catalyze the workers who will be needed and who are frankly required to do what's necessary. Even against, some would argue, unsurmountable odds to seek the freedom and liberation that we all desire and more importantly deserve. And so again, we thank you all for joining us. We say once again, happy birthday, Mumia Abu-Jamal. All right. And we want to close out as we always do. What's the call? What's
Free
the
them
call?
all.
Free them
What's the call?
all.
Free 'em all.
Free them all. And peace to our new Africans. We always say free the land, y'all. Free the land. One love, peace and power till next time, y'all. Free Mumia, free all political prisoners. Peace.
Record.